I swear on my life, this happened. I don't expect anyone to believe me, but I know what I saw, what I felt. It was supposed to be a simple hiking trip. 3 days in the Appalachians, just me, my brother Ethan, and our friend Mark. No phones, no distractions, just fresh air, a few beers at camp, and miles of trail. But we got lost on the second night. The sun set faster than we expected, and before we knew it, the trees swallowed us. We should have been near a trail marker, but no matter which way we turned, we couldn't find it. The forest got denser, the temperature dropped, and an uneasy silence settled in. No wind, no animals, just nothing. Then we saw the cabin. It was just there, sitting in a small clearing like it had always been. No overgrown path leading to it, no signs of recent visitors. Smoke curled from the chimney, and warm yellow light glowed from the windows. It felt too perfect, too convenient. Something about it felt off, but it was cold, and we were exhausted. Inside, it was warm, really warm, with a fire crackling in the hearth and a pot of stew simmering on the stove. The place looked lived in, but there were no pictures, no personal belongings, just furniture, a few old books, and that overwhelming sense that someone had been there just moments before. We didn't question it. We were just grateful. We ate, we laid out our sleeping bags, and we crashed hard. Sometime in the night I woke up. Everything was silent. The fire had burned out, and the air was freezing, my breath curling in the dark. Then I noticed Ethan was gone. At first, I thought maybe he stepped outside to pee, but something felt wrong. His sleeping bag was empty, his boots were missing, but his backpack was gone too. That didn't make sense. I shook Mark awake, but when I said Ethan's name, Mark just blinked at me like I was speaking another language. He looked genuinely confused, like he didn't know who I was talking about. I felt sick. I started tearing through the cabin, calling Ethan's name. I ran outside, but the clearing had changed. The trees were closer. The path we had come from was gone. The cabin now sat in the middle of a perfect circle of dead grass, like nothing had grown there in years. Then I turned back toward the door, and my stomach dropped. The cabin wasn't the same. The fire was out, but worse than that, the whole place looked abandoned. The walls were rotting, the furniture was broken, and dust covered everything. The pot of stew on the stove? It was still there, but covered in mold, like it had been sitting for years. I backed away, heart hammering in my chest. I called for Ethan again, but the name felt strange on my tongue, like it was slipping from my memory the second I said it, like my own brain was trying to erase him. Mark was still behind me, quiet, watching, not scared, just blank, like I was the one acting crazy. We ran. I don't remember much after that, just the feeling of branches slashing at my arms, the sound of my own breathing, the overwhelming urge to get away. We hiked until morning, until we found another group of campers, people who looked at us like we were insane when we told them what happened. I checked every missing persons report in the area for weeks. Nothing. No one had reported Ethan missing because, according to every record, Ethan never existed. His apartment was empty. His name wasn't in any official records. Our childhood photos, the ones where I knew for a fact he had been standing next to me, there was nothing there, just an empty space where he should have been. I told people. I told everyone, friends, family, even the police. But they didn't believe me. They thought I had been confused. that I had gotten lost and panicked, that my mind had played tricks on me. Some people even laughed, told me I should write horror stories instead of scaring myself with them. But I know he was real. I know what I saw, and I know that whatever happened in that cabin, it wanted us there. I never went back. I never will. I don't tell this story often anymore. People either laugh it off or try to explain it away. Say I was tired, lost, maybe even hallucinating. But I know what I saw. I know what happened. It was late afternoon when I first realized how low my gas tank was. I had been driving through the Smoky Mountains, taking back roads, enjoying the scenery. I wasn't worried at first. Cades Cove wasn't far, and I knew there was a visitor center nearby. The road curved through the trees, the mountains looming in the distance. The sun was starting to dip lower, casting long shadows across the road. Then, just ahead, I saw something I hadn't expected, a gas station. That didn't make sense. I had been through Cades Cove before. There weren't any gas stations inside the loop, but there it was, tucked beside an old general store, its wooden sign swaying slightly in the evening breeze. The paint was peeling, but the place was open. I could hear the faint buzz of the lights above the pumps. I pulled in, grateful. I didn't see any other cars, but that wasn't unusual for these roads so close to sunset. The place had an odd look to it, though. Not abandoned, just old, like it had been forgotten. Inside the store, an elderly man stood behind the counter. His clothes were neat, pressed like he had just stepped out of another decade. He didn't say a word as I walked in, just watched me. The air inside smelled strange, not rotten, not dirty, just old, like dust and wood left untouched for too long. The shelves were stocked, but everything looked out of time. Glass soda bottles, candy bars in faded wrappers, a rack of postcards that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. I grabbed a bottle of water and went to pay. The old man rang me up on an actual cash register, one of those ancient ones with the push buttons. I asked him how far I was from the nearest main road. His mouth twitched like he was about to smile, but he didn't. He just said, "Not far." Something about his voice made my skin prickle. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. Flat, almost rehearsed. I didn't linger. I walked back outside, the sky now a deep shade of blue. The last bit of sunlight was slipping behind the mountains. I got in my car, turned the key. Nothing. The engine wouldn't start. I tried again. Still nothing. The gas station lights flickered above me, buzzing louder than before. The air felt heavier, pressing in on me. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The road I had come in on was gone. Not blocked, not overgrown, just gone. The trees stood unbroken, thick and silent, like there had never been a road there at all. I gripped the steering wheel, my breath quickening. My GPS was blank, no signal. I turned back toward the store, but something inside me screamed not to go back in. The old man was still standing at the counter, staring out the window at me. He hadn't moved. I got out of the car, heart pounding, and took a few shaky steps toward the road. Maybe I had taken a wrong turn. Maybe there was another way out. But as I walked forward, the temperature dropped. The air was thick with the smell of smoke, not from the gas station, but from something older, something burned long ago. The ground felt soft under my feet, like I was walking on something that didn't want to hold my weight. Then I heard it. Faint at first, almost lost in the trees. Whispers, not words, just voices, murmuring, shifting. like they were trying to decide whether or not I was supposed to be there. I turned back toward my car, except now, it wasn't at the pump anymore. It was sitting 15 feet away, like it had been moved when I wasn't looking. The headlights flickered. I ran. I don't remember how I got out. I don't remember turning the wheel. I don't remember finding a road again. 1 second, I was standing in front of the store, heart hammering, the old man watching me with that blank expression. And the next, I was driving. The road was back. My car was running. The gas station was gone. Just trees. Just empty road behind me. I didn't stop driving until I reached a well-lit highway. I pulled into a gas station, a real one, and sat there, trying to calm down. I told myself I imagined it, that I had gotten turned around and let my mind play tricks on me. But later, I checked maps, old records. There was never a gas station in Cades Cove. Not then, not ever. I tried telling people what happened, but no one believed me. They said I must have misread the signs, that I got lost and panicked. Maybe I did, but I know what I saw. And I know that if I had stayed just a little longer, if I had stepped back into that store, I might not have left at all. I didn't believe the stories at first. They sounded like the kind of campfire legends locals tell to spook outsiders. The rule was simple: don't whistle in the woods at night. I had rented a small cabin in the Appalachian Mountains, just outside a quiet town. It was meant to be a break from everything. No phone, no internet, just me and the mountains for a week. The cabin was old but sturdy, tucked into the trees at the end of a narrow dirt road. The nearest neighbor was miles away. Perfect. The old woman at the general store was the first to mention it. I was buying supplies when she casually told me to avoid hiking after dark. When I asked why, she hesitated. Then she just said, "Don't whistle after sunset." I laughed it off, asked if it was some kind of mountain folklore. She didn't laugh back. She just gave me this long, tired look and handed me my change. That night, the silence in the woods was almost unnatural. No wind, no rustling leaves, no distant animal sounds. Just stillness pressing against the cabin like a weight. The second night, I decided to go for a walk before bed. The trail behind the cabin stretched deep into the woods, winding between thick trees and disappearing into darkness. I walked maybe a half mile in before I stopped and listened. Still nothing. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I was testing the legend. Maybe I just wanted to break the silence. I pursed my lips and whistled. The sound cut through the trees, sharp and clear. I waited. A moment later, something whistled back. It wasn't an echo. It came from deeper in the woods, far enough away that I couldn't see anything but trees and darkness. It mimicked the exact same tune I had whistled, perfectly. A slow chill crept up my spine. I turned back, walking faster than before. The cabin was only a few minutes away. I kept my breathing steady, convincing myself it had been a bird, the wind, something logical. Then I whistled again, just to prove to myself that it was nothing. The response came immediately, closer. I stopped walking. The sound had moved at least 100 feet in seconds. That wasn't possible. I started walking faster. The trees felt tighter, the path narrower. The air was different now, thick, charged, like the atmosphere before a storm. Then the whistling came again. But this time, it wasn't a perfect mimic. It was wrong, like something trying to sound human. I broke into a run. The cabin was in sight now, the warm glow of the porch light spilling into the dark. My lungs burned, my ears straining for the sound, but it had stopped. I slammed the door behind me and locked it. The cabin suddenly felt too small, the windows too exposed. I turned off the lights, crouched low, and listened. For a long time there was nothing, just silence. Then, just outside the window, too close to be real, whistling, low, slow, almost playful. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. It whistled the same tune I had whistled earlier, lingering on the last note as if waiting for me to respond. Then the footsteps started. Not heavy, not clumsy, just soft, deliberate steps, moving around the cabin. The wood creaked on the porch. I stayed curled on the floor, heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. At some point, I must have passed out from exhaustion. When I woke up, the morning light was streaming through the windows. I don't know how long it had been out there. Watching. I left that morning, packed up everything, and never looked back. Later, I tried to ask around, tried to find a logical explanation, but no one wanted to talk about it. The old woman at the general store just shook her head when she saw me. I know what I heard, and I know I wasn't alone that night. But the worst part, when I checked my phone later, just to reassure myself that nothing had followed me home, I found a recording, a voice memo I don't remember making. When I pressed play, it was just breathing at first. Then, after a long pause, the sound of someone whistling.